There are places in Middle-earth where even the light of the stars seems to die, where ancient evils linger and shadows whisper of things long forgotten. These lands are not merely dark, they are alive, twisted by sorcery, blood, and time itself. Some were forged in the fires of Morgoth's wrath, others cursed by the sins of men. Each carries a legacy of death and power, from the desolate wastelands of Mordor to the frozen peaks of Mount Gundabad, from the spider-infested tunnels of Cirith Ungol to the pits of Angband, where screams once echoed without end. These are not just places on a map, they are wounds upon the world. Today we venture deep into Middle-earth's darkest history to uncover the 10 most dangerous places ever to exist. Realms so corrupted, even the bravest heroes dared not tread their paths. This is where Middle-earth itself turns against the living. Let's begin our descent with the first location on our list. 10. Mount Gundabad. Our descent into the most dangerous places of Middle-earth begins in the frozen north, at the shadowed peak of Mount Gundabad. Once, it was a sacred place for the dwarves, believed to be the site where Durin the Deathless first awoke, the birthplace of their kind. But over the ages that sanctity was defiled. Gundabad became a fortress of orcs, a breeding pit of corruption that festered through the mountains. From its halls poured armies of darkness during the Wars of the North, and later, it became a stronghold for Azog and his kin, the heart of orcish power during The Hobbit. Beneath its icy crags and black tunnels, the cries of enslaved dwarves and the clash of iron still echo. Once holy, now cursed, Mount Gundabad stands as a monument to how even the most sacred places in Middle-earth can be twisted into something monstrous. Nine, Mirkwood. From the frozen mountain peaks, we descend into shadow, into the endless tangled forest of Mirkwood. Once called Greenwood the Great, it was a place of beauty, where elves lived beneath golden leaves and starlit canopies. But when the shadow of Dol Guldur crept across its borders, everything changed. The trees grew dark and twisted, their branches heavy with webs and rot. Even sunlight seemed afraid to enter. Strange whispers moved through the air, and the creatures that lived beneath the roots were no longer natural. Monstrous spiders, bred from the dark will of Ungoliant's brood, spread terror throughout the woods. Those who wandered too far into Mirkwood rarely returned, lost in an endless maze of decay and delusion. The forest itself seemed alive, hungry, watching, waiting. In the end, Mirkwood became a reflection of the evil that poisoned it, a living nightmare at the very heart of Middle-earth. 8. The Paths of the Dead. Beneath the white mountains of Gondor lies a place where no living soul dares tread, the Paths of the Dead. Long ago, an entire people swore an oath to Isildur, and broke it. Cursed for their betrayal, they were doomed to linger between life and death until their vow was fulfilled. The halls beneath the mountains echo with whispers that are not of the living. Pale figures drift through the darkness, bound to their shame for eternity. The air itself feels heavy, thick with despair, a place where time has no meaning, and even courage fades into silence. Few have ever entered those tunnels and returned to tell the tale. Even Aragorn, heir of Isildur, felt the weight of death pressing upon him as he summoned the Oathbreakers to his cause. The Paths of the Dead are more than haunted. They are a grave that never closed, a realm where the living walk among the damned. Seven, the Dead Marshes. To the east of the Anduin lies a place where the world itself seems drowned, the Dead Marshes. What was once a battlefield of the last alliance of elves and men became, over the ages, a rotting wasteland of stagnant water and ghostly lights. Beneath the shallow pools, pale faces can be seen, the dead of that ancient war, their bodies long decayed, yet their spirits still trapped beneath the surface. Their eyes flicker faintly in the dark, luring travelers closer, as if begging to be freed, or to drag the living down with them. Frodo himself nearly fell under their spell as he journeyed with Gollum, learning too late that the marshes remember everything: blood, death, and sorrow. No wind stirs there, no bird sings, only the soft bubbling of death and decay. The Dead Marshes are not a resting place. They are a reminder that in Middle-earth, even the land can remember pain. Six, Cirith Ungol. Hidden high in the shadowed mountains of Mordor lies a pass few dare to name aloud. Cirith Ungol, the Spider's Pass. To the unknowing eye, it is merely a fortress built by Gondor long ago, meant to guard the borders of the Black Land. But beneath those decaying towers, the darkness is alive. For in the depths of its winding tunnels dwells Shelob, the last child of the primordial spider Ungoliant, a being older than the sun and moon themselves. When Frodo and Sam entered those caverns, they weren't just walking into Mordor. They were stepping into the lair of something ancient and hungry. The air grows thicker there, filled with cobwebs and the stench of decay. Every echo sounds like a whisper. Every shadow moves as if watching. The tower of Cirith Ungol itself became a place of betrayal and madness, where even orcs turned on one another under the weight of its evil. And all the while, Shelob waited, patient, eternal, feeding on the lost and on fear itself. 5. Minas Morgul. Once it was a city of light. Minas Ithil, the Tower of the Moon, built by Isildur as a symbol of hope and beauty. But that light was extinguished long ago. When the Witch King of Angmar claimed it for his own, the tower was twisted into something unholy, reborn as Minas Morgul, the Tower of Dark Sorcery. Its walls glow with a sickly green light, like the corpse lanterns of the dead. A nauseating mist clings to its gates, and its towers seem to breathe as though alive. Here the Nazgul dwell, once kings of men, now slaves to Sauron's will, their very presence enough to drain courage from any who approach. When its gates opened during the War of the Ring, an army of death poured forth, led by the Witch King himself. Minas Morgul is not merely a fortress, it is a wound in the world, where beauty was murdered and only terror remains. Four, Dol Guldur. Hidden deep within southern Mirkwood lies a fortress that even the elves dared not approach. Dol Guldur, the Hill of Sorcery. It began as a ruin, a nameless shadow that spread through the forest like a poison. But in truth, it was Sauron himself, in his guise as the Necromancer, who made it his lair. From here, his power slowly crept across Middle-earth once more. Dark creatures gathered under his call, orcs, wargs, and spirits of the long dead, all bound to his will. The very air around Dol Guldur seemed to rot, thick with fear and decay. Even the White Council hesitated to strike it, knowing that whatever dwelt there was not merely a sorcerer, but a shadow of the first Dark Lord himself. When the fortress finally fell, it was not destroyed, only emptied. The darkness retreated to Mordor, but the taint of Dol Guldur would linger forever. Three, Mordor. Few names in Middle-earth carry more dread than Mordor, the Black Land, where shadows have ruled for an age. Encircled by the mountains of ash and flame, this land was forged by Sauron himself as both prison and throne. Here stands Barad-dûr, the Dark Tower, its iron crown piercing the sky. A monument to domination, the land itself seems alive with malice. The ground burns, the rivers run with poison, and the sky never clears. Nothing grows here except hatred. At its center looms Mount Doom, where the One Ring was both born and destroyed, a volcano that beat like the heart of Sauron's power. Every road in Mordor leads to servitude or death. Its armies were countless, its walls unbreakable, and its watch unending. Even from afar, the red glare of Orodruin could be seen, a beacon of despair reminding all who lived the evil, once risen, never truly sleeps. Mordor is not just a land of fire, it is evil given form. 2. Angband. Before Mordor, there was Angband, the Iron Prison, a fortress carved into the bones of the world by Morgoth, the first and mightiest Dark Lord. If Mordor was fire and smoke, Angband was pure decay, a wound in the earth that festered for centuries. Its black halls stretch beneath the northern mountains, where the sun could never reach. Rivers of molten metal flowed through forges that never ceased, crafting the monstrous legions of Morgoth's armies, orcs, dragons, and balrogs. Above it all loomed Thangorodrim, 3 volcanic peaks that bled ash into the sky, blotting out the stars. Here, Gothmog, Lord of Balrogs, reigned as Morgoth's war captain, and here countless elves were chained, tortured, or twisted into mockeries of their own kind. The screams of Angband echoed through the First Age, a sound that even Valinor feared to hear. When it finally fell, the world itself trembled. Mountains collapsed, seas rose, and Morgoth was cast into the void. Yet, even in ruin, the shadow of Angband lingers, for evil of that scale leaves marks that never fade. 1. Utumno. Before Angband, before Mordor, before even the first sunrise, there was Utumno, the origin of all darkness in Arda. Forged by Morgoth in the dawn of time, Utumno was not merely a fortress. It was a blasphemy carved into creation itself. Buried deep beneath the northern wastes, it was here that the pure light of Ea was first defiled, and the harmony of the world forever broken. Inside, Morgoth bred his first abominations, the earliest orcs, born from tortured elves, giants, vampires, werewolves, all twisted echoes of what once was fair. The very stone of Utumno groaned beneath the weight of its corruption, as if the world itself rebelled against its existence. The Valar feared what grew there. When at last they stormed Utumno, the battle shattered mountains and cracked the earth. Morgoth was taken in chains, but the cost was great. The seeds of his evil had already spread. Utumno was destroyed. Yet its shadow never truly vanished. Its spirit lived on through Angband, through Mordor, through every dark place that came after. For as long as Arda endures, the memory of Utumno whispers, a reminder that the first evil is never truly gone. From dark fortresses and cursed lands to shadowed mountains and forsaken realms, these are the places where Middle-earth itself turned against the living. Each one, from the webs of Mirkwood to the fires of Mordor, from the shadows of Dol Guldur to the ancient pits of Utumno, carries a legacy of fear, death, and power. But which of these places do you think was the most dangerous of them all? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this descent into the darker corners of Tolkien's world, make sure to like, subscribe, and join me for more tales from Middle-earth. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you on the next one.